College Baseball Experience Bracketology and Top 16 Reveal live stream is brought to you by the Sports Gambling Podcast Network and the SGPN app. Go over there and download it on the Apple Store and Google Play Store. Get all of our free picks and podcasts with the SGPN app. And welcome back in to the College Baseball Experience. What's going on, everybody? We're going to live stream our reaction to the host sites getting named here at around 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Joining me, myself, Noah Bieniek, is the regular co-host of the College Experience this year, has been JP Sponseller. JP, how you doing, and how excited are you to see the top 16 tonight, or at least the 16 teams, not necessarily their seedings?
Good. I'm very excited. Obviously, no work tomorrow for most people out there, so that's always a good feeling on a Sunday. And then, yeah, I'm excited about. I think this is finally a year as a Cincinnati fan. I think we have a good shot at getting two hosts in the Big 12 this year, and I think it's deserving of that. I'm interested to see if they decide to snub them one more time here in a few minutes.
Yeah, last year TCU, I believe, is who you're referencing. Right there on that bubble, and did get left out and sent to Corvallis, where they went to in barbecue last year. And of course, I think this is our third, maybe even fourth straight year doing this. The man of the hour, Rocco Miller, the professional bracketologist, the one that does this for a living on the basketball side of things, but he dips his toes into the water during the baseball postseason and throughout the month of May. And honestly, this year you did really well keeping up with it throughout the entire season. Kudos to you, Rocco. How are you doing tonight, and how excited are you to see the first kind of reveal of who we're looking at top 16 was?
Guys, it's an honor and a privilege to be back with you this year. It's been fun. I felt like last year couldn't have gone much better from a projection standpoint, so I'm just trying to hold serve this year. I think we had all the hosts right. We had all 64 right, so no promises. I have a feeling I'm going to miss something this year. We have some new variables, obviously, with the DSR included in the team sheets, one new committee member. But I like to focus on a lot of the stuff that I know you guys are less interested in. But this was a really fun week. Got to go to the American Conference Tournament for a couple of days out in Clearwater. Made it back here to the West Coast to get ready for this with you guys and for tomorrow. So really excited about the whole process. I actually think the top 16 should be kind of boring today. Yeah. And if we do get a surprise, then we'll have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we are in the same thought process. I do think that as I pull up kind of our master Google sheet that we will work off tonight, no question at number one. I do think that remains UCLA. They've been number one in a lot of the metrics the entire year. Wire-to-wire preseason number one team. Honestly, I think the first six, there could be maybe order, switch ups, or one person could have North Carolina above Georgia. One person could have Georgia above North Carolina. Rocco, I do think those top six probably are comfortable, right? How would you order those?
I think so. I haven't had the opportunity to talk about this with other humans as much as I'd like to, so this is a privilege. And sometimes you do this by yourself too often. You get in your own head, so this is healthy for all of us. But I think we would all probably agree in some order. I would probably go Georgia Tech, of course, next. The ACC double champions, what a year they had. And it's amazing to see a team as dominant as Georgia to also win the double championship in the best league in baseball, obviously the SEC, just not have such superior marks as UCLA and Georgia Tech. But I would have to put them three just based on, so much of this at the top is about what you achieved. And all three of these teams achieved double championships. Everybody else we'll talk about after this. It's like, yeah, we think they're really good. And yeah, they've had some awesome weekends, but you could poke holes in them, because they did not win trophies. And then I think of the four, North Carolina was obviously strong, got to the ACC title game. No shame in losing to Georgia Tech. Actually beat Georgia Tech in their weekend series. So I think they finished 2-2. And then I'd probably go Texas just because they had the weekend road series win over over Auburn head-to-head. You also look at them both winning 19 total SEC games, but Texas only losing 11 times, Auburn losing 14 times. Those are just some basic tiebreakers. Obviously, Auburn has some metric advantages, but that's my order. How do you guys feel?
I think 1 through 6, that matches out. I think going into the day, I had Auburn above Texas. I actually talked to you earlier, and you had Texas above Auburn. I totally agree with the perspective there. And then as Jacksonville State won the Conference USA, it turns out Auburn now has a losing quad 1 record. So I'm all aboard on the Texas above Auburn train here, as I just lost my window share. JP, being the Big 12 representative, I'm going to tee you up to ask Rocco, as he mentioned, UCLA, Georgia Tech, Georgia all have the double. How about your Big 12 team? Are they climbing into the 8? Talk about that real quick.
I think that I think you could see, but like going into this week, obviously just the rankings and where people like West Virginia was 9 and Kansas was 13, correct? By D1 baseball, I want to say. I don't know if that factors in
no.
to really like the decision making at all. I do think you could give Kansas that 8 spot, considering the double championship, and but they did not have a very good non-conference at the beginning of the year. They really took a while to kind of get going. So honestly, I would not be shocked if they're somewhere in the 9 or 10 range and don't get that top 8 seed. But I think considering what Rocco was just talking about with double championships, I think you could consider giving them that 8 spot.
And Rocco, so adding Kansas to the convo, and this is where I think it does get a little bit interesting. You mention every year with the committee members, right? And there could be like conflicting interests. You have Florida's AD on the selection committee, you have Florida State's AD on the selection committee, you have Southern Miss's AD on the selection committee, and I think those 3 are all competing for one of these final top 8 national seeds, and then also Southern Miss with a double in the Sun Belt, with Kansas having a double in the Big 12. Let us know how you separated all of those teams. What's your 7 through 11 here?
Yeah, well, I think that's what makes the top 8 here the most complicated part of the host picture, in my opinion. I think as we get down to the bottom, once we find out who these top 11 in order are, it'll be a little easier to parse out. But because of the committee member complications, I do think, with Florida getting to the semifinals, having a big pile of quad 1 wins, basically almost had Georgia beat yesterday. It looks a little more impressive here at the end with the way Georgia kind of steamrolled Arkansas in the championship game, that Florida will be in that number 7 hole. So I feel pretty good about that. But now it gets really interesting. And the way I looked at it from Kansas' point of view, and again, I'm not trying to take one side or the other. I'm just trying to say, here's what's the good and here's what the bad is. And I think with Kansas, the Big 12, if you look at the conference RPI rankings, which I think are important, the committee looks at that before they kind of dive in. There was about as much separation between the SEC and the ACC between 1 and 2 as there was between the ACC and Big 12. Really not a huge gap. Some years you see the SEC and ACC just dominate, and there's a big drop off to the 3rd best conference. That didn't happen this year. And as JP could probably tell in more volume, is each weekend in the league, it was a tough series for the most part. Houston and Texas Tech and Arizona were all pretty down, but still feisty. You have about somewhere between 6 to 8 bids coming from the league, and obviously a nice handful of 2 seeds that are going to be projected. And Kansas goes in and goes 22-8, despite the big black eye getting swept at home down the stretch against West Virginia. They redeemed themselves to a degree by blowing out the Mountaineers in the all-important championship game, 9-0. I also think they had 2 other important games against Nebraska. They won them both. And that helped with their non-conference mix, even though it was about 150th non-conference. And so I think if you just look at it from the 3rd best leader than the Big 10 overall, than the Sun Belt overall, it's really impressive. It's 25 total wins against the league. If you add the 3 wins they got in surprise. And I start stacking that up to what Southern Miss did. Southern Miss was lucky to beat Troy the first time yesterday, had a loss to Troy after that, and then what a heck of a tournament that was, with Southern Miss and Troy going back and forth. But I think that loss kind of hurt a little bit, if all things are fair, for Southern Miss's case. I also think with Alabama, you could poke holes in some of their resumes. Same with Texas A&M. It's all very, very close, though, because there's also certain things about those SEC resumes that teams like Kansas and Southern Miss just don't own. So I'm sure it was heavily debated in the room. I just think when it comes to actual achievements, Kansas has achieved the most on this list.
Okay. And then just for conversation's sake, if it's not Kansas at 8, how do you power rank or I guess seed Florida State and Southern Miss that were left out there?
Yeah, I mean, I would have Southern Miss still above, obviously winning the 2 championships. I know both Florida State's AD, who is the chairman this year, adding more complexities for us to try to evaluate. It is, there at the top. Southern Miss's AD is there as well. I just think when you look at Florida State's resume, it lacks the heavy punch that you're looking for. They lost their 8 hardest games. I think I shared the team sheet with you earlier, Noah, today. And you look at every team Florida State beat, they didn't beat one single host. So they had 8 opportunities. They went 0-8. So if everything's fair in the room and I'm a voter, I would have Florida State probably at the bottom of all these teams listed, except for maybe Nebraska.
Interesting. Okay. So Florida State.
I don't know if that's going to happen. So
neither do I. I think there's a world where they can sneak into the top 8. We won't figure that out tonight. Right. But I do like the order that we have on the screen currently makes sense to me. And this is where I think we should spend a little bit more time on it before we get into the announcements here. I think there are 4 teams for 3 spots. The 14, 15, 16, hypothetically here on our sheet currently. We're looking at West Virginia, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Oregon. We've got 4 teams looking for 3 spots. Who's the team that's left out? Who's the redheaded stepchild here in your eyes, Rocco?
Yeah, I think unfortunately it's Mississippi State for their sake. I mean, there's a world where they're the best team out of those 4. If they, went out and played a regional together, the 4 of them, I could see Mississippi State winning that. But they end up with a 9-14 record in Quad 1. That stands out a lot. You go series by series, and they dropped outside of the Ole Miss 4-gamer because they had the regular sweep, and then they get that extra game against them. They won all 4 of them. Any other NCAA tournament team from the SEC, guess what Mississippi State's record was, Noah?
I think, all 14 losses probably. Are we saying NCAA tournament teams, Quad 1?
And I'm throwing Tennessee and Oklahoma in there too.
Okay, so I think they were swept at home by Tennessee. Yep. So I'm thinking like 7-20.
They're 4-14. So 10 of those SEC wins. They swept South Carolina, they swept LSU, they swept Vandy, and they beat Mizzou and Hoover. So 10 of those wins that helped them get towards a host. We're always looking for 16 or more SEC wins to be a host. They got there. But that's a big asterisk in my mind because 10 of those are against non-tournament teams, unless you have Vanderbilt or LSU somehow getting in, which I'm not going to be joining you if you're in that camp.
All right.
So I think when you get to the guts of the resume, it's not enough. Nebraska, they did sweep USC. Oregon has a great Quad 1 record. They obviously own Nebraska in their 3 of their 4 meetings. And then you look at West Virginia, they were solid all year long, swept Kansas on the road. I'm sure JP will back me up on them as well. So I just think it's pretty clearly Mississippi State that's out.
All right.
For hosting.
Well, we do have news. This year, they did not kind of drag it out like usual. We got one seed, kind of all alphabetically. This year, we just got one graphic. And here it is. We're looking at, did that work? Screen share? Gosh, yes. Add screen share, please. All right. Here we go. So here's our 16 hosts this year. Georgia, and this is by alphabetical city. Georgia, Georgia Tech, Auburn, Texas, North Carolina, Texas A&M, Oregon, Florida, Southern Miss, Kansas, Nebraska, UCLA, West Virginia, Mississippi State, Florida State, and Alabama. Our team of those three that was left out was Arkansas. No Fayetteville Regional this year. So that means West Virginia, Mississippi State, and Oregon all snuck in the back end. Rocco, immediately, I think what I deduce from this is Arkansas's big wins in the SEC tournament, where they added quality neutral site wins, did not move the needle enough.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised by that because I think in years past we've seen that move the needle. And they did win 2 out of 3 against Mississippi State head-to-head. Obviously, that was a home series, and 2 out of 3 is not always convincing enough when you're home. But I'm a little surprised because you look at the 18 quad one wins that Arkansas had. I think there was only 9 teams in the country actually there was less than that had that many. So it's a heavy amount of wins. A lot of their schedule was in the quadrant one. They got swept at home by Florida, lost some home games to Georgia, but who didn't? I'm a little surprised because I think if they would have taken in, especially into account this week, it's certainly an RPI play as Arkansas was stuck in the number 21 spot. But with that amount of SEC damage, I'm surprised.
JP, your league that you are a fan of, that you played in back in the day, and also Moneyline Max, West Virginia Mountaineers sneak in and get a regional host. 2 Big 12 hosts this year, getting a little bit more respect. Immediate reaction to the regional sites.
Well, first, I want to correct you. I was never in the Big 12.
American.
I was an American Athletic Conference guy. So I was still a mid-major guy. But no, I mean, I'm very proud, I guess, like just seeing names like Nebraska and West Virginia that the committee decided to put in over an Arkansas, which like I wouldn't have been too sour either way. I would have totally understood that. And I often think about too, like when you go back to the debating between Mississippi State and Arkansas, obviously they would love to have some of the best venues in college baseball being host sites. And I guess I was kind of shocked. Like I thought if it came down to those two, they might find a way to get both in, considering Duty Noble and Baum Walker. I mean, at some point, I think it does come down to how many fans you can hold and how much money you can bring in a little bit. But no, I mean, I'm very excited to see Nebraska, West Virginia, and Kansas. As far as like, obviously you can look at resume and the RPI and who you played. I very much believe in that, but I also believe in rewarding people for winning a lot of ball games and winning championships. And I guess I'm glad to see that. I feel like they did that this year for maybe some untraditional hosting teams.
Yeah. I think my big takeaway this year is, one, we got Middle America like heavily represented, and it's not like your Arkansas big brand. It's Kansas and Nebraska. So I do think the committee's going to like not having to rely on the state of Texas for the Middle America kind of hosting the 2s, the 3s, the 4s. So you got the 2 Texas sites, 2 Central America sites, 3 Big Ten hosts. I don't know why my screen keeps flipping out and anything, but UCLA, Nebraska, Oregon, all getting a host. I am slightly surprised. I had Oregon left out personally in my top 16 projection in favor of Mississippi State, Arkansas, West Virginia, in no specific order there. Are we ready to jump into some of the bracketology, kind of seeding some of these 16, reseeding that back 3, Rocco? Anything else you want to add before we start doing that?
Yeah, no doubt. Like, I'm ready as well. I just think I have to recalibrate to a degree because I'm looking at this being maybe a little bit more of a metrics decision. Like I think the allocation and the process went about as perfectly as I thought it would. It was more just them preferring Mississippi State over Arkansas. My only thing that I have to recalibrate on. And I think when you look at the 3 major metrics, RPI, KPI, and DSR, Mississippi State had like a 1 or 2 spot lead in the other 2, and obviously in RPI, a pretty sizable lead. However, everything else, guts of the resume, like just diving in, hands for bare hands first, like I like to do, favored Arkansas, and it makes me have to recalibrate a little bit, because I think if you're going to see a team above another team in all three metrics, that's going to help your Florida States of the world, because obviously Florida State doesn't have the guts.
Rocco,
Alrighty.
I'm kind of curious, just real quick before we jump in. Noah talked about the 3 Big Ten hosts, which I'm also very surprised by, I guess. Just considering like the separation between those top 4 or 5 teams in the league compared to the rest of the conference. I guess, what are your feelings towards rewarding 3 Big Ten hosts this year?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it was very clear those top 4 were much better than the rest. I'd be shocked actually if Michigan or Purdue or anybody else gets into the field. So there's annually a little bit of horse trading that tends to happen more so in baseball than other sports like basketball. And if you look at that and you're almost automatically thinking there's going to be no other Big Ten teams in except USC, because that's a pretty big deal for the Big Ten, and Indiana's AD's on the committee, so he's got to feel good about his work on there. But I also just think when UCLA is the number 1 team in the nation, and they were number 1 basically wire to wire, that gives everybody in the league an apple to bite out of. And Oregon played them hard all 4 times. I thought I paid attention all 4 of those games. They only won 1 of them. They could have won 3 of them. And I think that alone gives you like, okay, if UCLA is the projected national champion, as part of this exercise, or at least a team that's certainly a favorite, and Oregon can play them that close, you really have no doubt that they are a top 16 team, as much as you would if they didn't get the chance to play those types of teams like a typical Big Ten would be. Same thing with Nebraska being feisty with Oregon. Obviously not doing as well against them overall, 1-3, but all those games were mostly good until yesterday's game. And then Nebraska sweeping USC. When you see USC taking UCLA to extra innings, it's pretty clear that all 4 of these teams are pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And if USC could have just found a way to win a few quad 1 games, they would have probably been a host as well. Or maybe they would have taken one of their spots. So those 4 teams are very elite, I think.
Okay. I think resume-wise, between Mississippi State, West Virginia, and Oregon, I think it's pretty simple in my opinion, based off of what Rocco's already harped on a little bit on Mississippi State, and then my belief on West Virginia having a little bit of a better resume than Oregon. I think it's West Virginia, Oregon, Hail State in that order. Rocco, what do you think? You're on mute, by the way, too.
Yeah. No, I'm good. I'm just thinking about this. Is I have to dive in a little differently than I did before. But I think my order previously would have probably certainly would have had Mississippi State in the back of that. West Virginia and Oregon were really, really close for me. I'm actually okay with either order on those 2. So they both check the boxes with road record, with winning quad 1 and 2 records, with quality series, results, with Oregon beating Nebraska, with West Virginia sweeping Kansas on the road. So I'll let you guys break that tie.
JP, what do you think?
Considering I had Oregon left out, I would probably go West Virginia. I also just remember thinking non-conference. I know they did very well in the Big Ten, but their big non-conference series was that weekend where they played Vandy, Irvine, a bunch of teams that at the time were thought of very highly, and then kind of ended up, not being great teams. So I don't know. It's just interesting. Obviously that helps them out resume wise a lot, but then when you look at where Irvine and Vanderbilt are at right now, but yeah, I would have West Virginia in front of Oregon.
Rocco, I have one comment that I just staring at the screen. If Oregon's that 16 seed, we get possibly 2, maybe 3 more games between Oregon and UCLA in a potential super regional.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if they want to do that.
Right. Neither do I.
Yeah. So I actually look at that a lot when I put the final. I try to avoid it if I can. I think they do as well. Now, obviously, if you have a clear-cut pecking order, I think if Oregon and Nebraska somehow end up side by side, you're going to have to put Oregon above them. But if Nebraska's got it's almost like the college football playoff when they had Miami and Notre Dame next to each other, and you had to keep Miami above Notre Dame because of the side-by-side thing. I think that exists now in baseball as well as basketball. So if Nebraska, the best news for them was this RPI thing. If you imagine that's consistent throughout the process, which sometimes it's not, but if it is, that's going to really help Nebraska be in a top 10 RPI, get closer to 10 than 16. And if that happens, then Oregon's going to be buried down there in like 15 or 14 spot, like you have it.
All right. So, yeah, the beauty of it this year, and I do love that they're doing this now, is they are ranking the 2 seeds. You would used to hear the West Coast has such an easy draw because they're all playing regional teams or whatever. That was just what you always heard from the very loud Southeastern fan bases, whether they come from the SEC or ACC. But now there's not really an excuse for that, I don't think. Let's move to that 2 seed conversation where we've got Arkansas, who's there. I do think that Ole Miss, previous to their loss to Missouri, was in that conversation to be a top 16 team. I do think USC was there in conversation. And how about let's do this now, Rocco. Are you surprised at all? I read your article. You thought Jacksonville State could have been in the conversation for an outside chance at a top 16, right?
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that the AD, Mr. Seitz, is on the committee, that always helps. And I think, in general, they're going to probably want to just be in a favorable location, which would probably be at Alabama. But I think, you have to at least talk about them. Conference USA is sending 3 teams solidly to the dance. Jacksonville State was unbelievable in that conference, running with a gaudy record both overall and in the league, and of course winning the conference tournament, plus 2 wins over Auburn. There's a lot to be said there from an ingredients point of view, but they got stuck in the RPI at 25. They were stuck in the DSR at 25 this morning. Maybe that goes up a tick or 2 tomorrow. And the KPI wasn't even as friendly. KPI had them 29. So I just think realistically they weren't going to do that. But I do look for Jacksonville State to hopefully, ideally, especially with the AD involved, get a somewhat favorable draw and stay close to home with a chance to advance. Yep.
So Ole Miss, USC, Wake Forest,
Beavers,
teams like that. Sorry?
The Beavers.
Oregon State. That's who we're looking at in these 3. Who would you leave out of that group? Maybe USC?
Yeah, I just think Jacksonville State will probably still be left behind if it's more of a metrics discussion, because this is where the power ranking can really come into play, and that's going to favor Oregon State, Ole Miss, and I believe USC the most.
Okay.
This will be interesting too. Yep. Just looking at like when we were talking about not wanting to match up the in-conference super regionals, like it'll just be interesting what they do with seeds 14, 15, and 16, considering that we're kind of in agreement that maybe those first 2 teams are Arkansas and maybe Ole Miss. So it's like, obviously the SEC will have the most bids out of any conference, but like, are they going to want to send Arkansas to Mississippi State's regional? Or I don't know. It could just be, it's going to be interesting those last couple spots, how they sort it out.
Yeah. So I think in that first quadrant, go ahead, Rocco.
Just a quick reminder. So teams from the same conference can't play in the same regional. So Arkansas won't go to Mississippi State. And then,
so that's a rule.
That's a hard rule.
Okay.
Yeah. So USC will not be able to go to Oregon, but Oregon State can, since they are an independent,
right?
Which I know would annoy some people there, but it'd also be good drama for the rest of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are kind of the things to remember, and I think everything else is fair game.
All right. So I think Arkansas, Oregon State, Ole Miss probably in that first quadrant. We've got USC, Wake Forest, Jacksonville State. Who else could be in that group? Cincinnati, RPI wise, I think is up there.
Yeah, I think they're just outside of this group we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I think these 3 teams would be. Let's pick one of those 3 for that top quadrant real quick.
Yeah, I think I'm still USC with their top 10 RPI. It's going to be just tough to not put them as a. At this point, I think you're ranking them in order of danger, and I think USC and those top 4 right there, those all represent danger. Those are like potential Omaha teams still.
Okay.
I think USC is also the first top 10 RPI team to not get a host spot. Like,
Yeah,
since
Indiana
the
State,
RPI
2022.
Okay.
Didn't Indiana State host though, Noah?
Yeah, that was the next year. There was one year where their RPI was like through the moon. It was like 4. Indiana State's the reason why the RPI quadrants changed in baseball.
Man.
But yeah, I think they'll try to reward USC a little bit, just considering that stat.
Okay, so I think these 3 all kind of make sense for this next quadrant to me. Wake Forest, Jacksonville State, Cincinnati in that 21 through 24 range. I'm going to just spitball a couple of more teams here. Coastal Carolina, Miami, Virginia, Missouri State, Tennessee, Boston College. Any of those teams spike your interest, Rocco?
Yeah, I certainly like Tennessee. Again, I'm looking at it as a danger factor. And you look at some of the teams they beat in 15 SEC wins. They're pretty dangerous. So you don't really want to penalize a top 8 team with a team like the Volunteers coming to town. At least save them for the bottom 8 of the 16 is my take on them. And then Coastal, I know they stumbled down the stretch. They have injuries and all that stuff, but they did have a lot of wins this year. Probably, if we're going by the numbers and by the records, they probably belong in this batch. And then I also had Oklahoma State.
Yeah,
it was close, but I thought between Cincinnati, ASU, all the UCF, all the teams that are right there next in the Big 12, I just thought Oklahoma State finished really strong, and they have some good non-conference wins as well. It makes them a little bit above the rest of the pack in my book.
Oklahoma
in the
State?
Big 12. Yeah.
All right. So Tennessee, Oklahoma State, Coastal Carolina is who you mentioned. So Tennessee for that top 1, Coastal, and then the Pokes. So now for this next quadrant of 2 seeds, we're looking at Miami, Missouri State, Liberty, Boston College, Virginia. Of those 5, are there any of these 5? 2 of these 5 that stick out from the group?
Yeah, to me, it's probably Miami the most. Just a few more quality wins, above 500 records in the key areas. It's really not a ton of separation. Obviously, Boston College and Virginia faded down the stretch.
Yeah,
I think Liberty can squeeze in as a 2, but if they do, it's going to be towards the bottom of the list here. And let me just make sure here on my chart.
Yeah, is there anybody that I'm not listing that you think could be a 2?
I think Arizona State's going to ultimately be a 2, but I'm okay with them towards the back part. Okay. Mainly because they finished 3rd in the league. They won 19 Big 12 games. They got to the semifinals, and they're dangerous. I mean, JP probably watched them a lot more than I did, but I saw them play last week. They look pretty good to me, and I'm impressed by some of their markers despite the low RPI.
Yeah, eye test wise, if I know Alford, the chairman, has been preaching, we are watching the games, we are judging on how talented these teams are. Eye test wise, Arizona State, I think, is a top 25 team. The resume is a resume of a bubble team, though. There's no in between there. So the 19 Big 12 wins, I do think, is their most heavy case for them being a 2 seed. But metrics wise, you look across the board, it's not strong. So
yeah, I think the 37 wins and the 19 wins in conference, especially like I'm glad Rocco said it and not me, but pointing out that he thought that the Big 12 was the clear 3rd best conference in college baseball this year. So I just think, honestly, given their performance in conference alone, and I mean, I don't know what they consider all, but like if star factor has anything to do with it, like you got Landon Harrison, a dude with 30 homers, and then I mean Cole Carlone on a Friday. I don't know, like if when he's on, that team can go up against just about anybody when they're playing their best baseball. So I would agree. I think they're definitely. I think they could find their way. Eye test wise, right? Like I think they're good enough to be a 2 seed. It'll just be interesting considering like their RPI and strength of schedule.
All right. So were there any teams that I left off that you had in consideration as 2 seeds? Because if not, I think we do have the group of 2 seeds right here.
What about
UCF's probably on the bubble here.
Okay.
You could look at them. You could look at them multiple ways as well. Another 19-win team from that league, but also a profile that could be scrutinized in a lot of ways. If you look at their quads 1 through 3, they're actually a losing team.
Yes.
I thought that was fascinating to look at yesterday. At the same time, they did well in the league, and they have no danger of getting in. I just think that makes it interesting for the 2-3 debate for them.
JP,
what
any
about
input there on missing teams?
Would the Pitt Panthers get a sniff?
No, not in a 2 seed. No, not in
No
that
shot.
conversation. I don't think they're a tournament team, period. That's a conversation that needs to be had 15 minutes from now.
All right. Well, yeah, I don't think I mean, no, there's no one that's sticking out to me that we're missing.
Okay.
I'll just say that UC Santa Barbara probably would have been here, but of course losing twice in the Big West tournament killed their hopes for a 2. They should be okay overall. Yeah. And then I would also say Louisiana, like nice run to the finals. They were a bubble team, clearly should be in now, and I think just fell barely short. If Louisiana would have won that title game, I think I would have probably gave them a 2. So maybe it was smart of them to lose today in a funny way, because they would have probably been a 2 in like Georgia Tech's regional or Georgia's, and I don't know if they really desired that.
Yeah, no, they honestly slotted themselves. They had a perfect week to definitely get themselves in the tournament, but maybe get like one of the top 3 seeds.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. So I think of these teams, I think my favorite one is I'll go maybe Liberty. I think they've got quad 1 wins to match. Oh, as my shared, this has been so screwy. I don't know why the shared screen keeps disappearing on me. I think it's Liberty. I think you got 10 quad 1 wins there. RPI, DSR likes them both. I think that's a team that I'm liking metrics wise and quality wins wise.
I think they sneak in there, especially with the second place finish here in the conference tournament, and finish 2-2 against Mo State straight up. They got the better overall resume than Mo State, even though Mo State's got this RPI advantage, which makes me have to think twice about everything. But otherwise, it's pretty clearly Liberty, I think.
And then I thought we had the 4 kind of listed there. UCF, Santa Barbara, and Louisiana, I think, are more 3 seeds. So I think Missouri State, Virginia, and Boston College in no specific order wrap up the 2 seeds there. I would probably have Boston College and Virginia flipped if we're not trying to do this in a timely fashion for an episode or a podcast YouTube live stream. But yeah, I do think that's kind of how I would have that going. Rocco, any disagreement there?
My main disagreement is I've been pretty solid on Boston College slipping to a 3. They've dropped all the way to 45th in the DSR, which, again, will matter for these decisions, I think, because it's more of a power ranking. You look at the Boston College quad 1, they're just 5-11. They also took 7 losses below quad 3. They had a great start to the year, but they've really kind of stumbled to finish. Obviously, they had a tough finish with Georgia Tech at home, losing those games by a combined 35 runs. Ouch.
Yeah.
So I just been less and less impressed of Boston College, both on the field and in the numbers as we've closed out the season here.
I think you could say similar about UCF. Like they were a team that came off really strong, and honestly similar to last year. Like had this really good first half of the year, and then just haven't really looked like the same team, I guess, this last third of the season.
So Rocco, would this be a fitting argument? This is the first year where they're doing these quadranted 2-seed rankings, and you're looking at UCLA, Boston College, UCLA, Georgia, and our projected. So Georgia Tech and North Carolina would not get BC, but I do think BC is a week or two. It kind of fits them going to a strong 1-seed regional.
Right.
And then there's they have 17 or 18 ACC wins. Like I do think that has a little bit of weight too, right?
It does. And it is a horrible play. If I'm a coach, I do not want these spots. I would rather be a 3 anywhere else and just take my chances, because you'll probably have a 50-50 first game and then just play well in that next one and boom, you're 2-0 versus, having to play at one of the best places in the country against one of the most talented teams. So yeah, it is interesting. I just don't know how much thought the committee will put into that. I think at this point they're just, I would love to be in the room for baseball because I know in basketball you'll take 8 teams at a time and rank them 1 through 8. You do that all the way through. So like even as a voter I think in baseball you have 10 members, it's just spitting out results in order. So like it will come out more random than even each voter thinks of it. So there's really no manipulating this part. It's just kind of like the consensus wherever it lands. So
all right.
We always try to scrutinize that in our the committee did this just to screw them, but it's honestly just so much of it. It's a byproduct of the process that obviously you can control who's in and out more with the debate and who's a top 8 and who's a host and stuff. But I think for this part, it's just going to come out however it comes out.
All right, now my favorite part. As we've traditionally saved the bubble for last. One, that's great podcasting. Keep the people to the end, but also it's easy to pair the AQs with those 1 seeds and then work the final AQs into the bottom of that 3 category, and then we know how many spots are remaining. JP, can you do me a favor real quick and go check the Mountain West and SWAC scores? Those were the final 2 title games that I had not seen the results for. Rocco, here, let's start with this. Have you fallen in love? I know I love this conversation every year. Have you fallen in love with any 1 and 4 seed marriages in a regional matchups?
Let's go to the chart here. Well, I would say, I don't know if there's a specific one quite yet. I would just say that Binghamton went to Georgia last year. So if you're going to send them to one of the Georgias, it's got to be Georgia Tech. Okay. They try to not send teams back to the same spot. I like South Dakota State. They have to probably go to either Kansas, Arkansas, or Nebraska.
Yeah, no Arkansas, though. So, yeah, Kansas and Nebraska.
That's right, no Arkansas. Excuse my French on that. And then I think it could be pretty interesting, and I'm not married to it either because I actually avoided it myself. But Washington State, not to steal the thunder here for JP, but Washington State's beating San Diego State 7-4 last I saw. And if they get the bid, you could have 3 Pac-12 teams in Eugene with the Beavers and Washington State. But Washington State's also on the bubble for a 3 or a 4 if they win this game. So there's lots to sort out there.
Incredible. That Yale, would make sense, though. That's a strong 4 into a 15 overall seeds regional. I could see that making sense. I do think that is not what Oregon would prefer. But if you're the Portland AD, you're kind of like rubbing your hands together. Let's have some fun, baby.
And then the last one, this just kind of, it could go, it really means not a whole lot, but Yale to a higher ed or like a state university makes sense. I've had them go to North Carolina several times. Obviously, if they go to Florida, the governor there is DeSantis. He went to Yale, played for Yale. So I keep ending up with Yale and in Gainesville because
hilarious. Okay, didn't know that,
but we'll see.
You learn some facts every day. Milwaukee is another one that could land at like Nebraska or Kansas. So,
right.
Throw Milwaukee in Lawrence for now.
SWAC tournament, Alabama State is the champions.
Oh, they beat Florida A&M.
Yep, 8-6.
They did.
Were they the 8th seed?
So
they had a really bad year this year for majority of the season.
Yeah, I'm shocked. All right, so Alabama State's probably heading to Georgia. Georgia, Auburn, Alabama.
Or Auburn.
Yeah.
Or Auburn.
All right.
So they've been to Alabama State's only been to the tournament twice, and they went to Florida State and Tennessee the last 2 times. So I think it's wide open except for Florida State.
Okay.
They could go to Tuscaloosa as well.
They could. I think with them probably having a poor RPI, Auburn or Georgia is the most likely.
That was, Georgia was kind of my thinking.
Probably Auburn.
You think Auburn?
Probably Auburn, yeah. Because they haven't gone there before, and it's close.
So worst league this year RPI-wise, I think by far was NEC. Does that make sense for a Long Island to Georgia or UCLA? Probably not UCLA, but maybe Georgia.
Yeah. They keep landing in Georgia for me. Absolutely.
That makes sense. Let's see here.
I think possibly Tuscaloosa. What about an Arkansas Little Rock? They're probably for sure for
Little Rocks. Yeah, they are.
Yeah, we can throw Little Rock and Little Rock can go many places. They can go to Nebraska, Kansas, Southern Miss, Mississippi State. We've got options for Little Rock here.
I would say they could go to A&M or something too. They could honestly.
Yeah. We don't have to see. UIC is probably a 4 in Nebraska. Nebraska, they'd definitely be able to bust, I think. Rocco.
Yeah, I just think, UIC is really interesting because the Missouri Valley is a much better league than their champion says they are. And
they won the regular season this year too. It's hilarious.
They won the double. They won the double. And I had them go. I could either see them going like, if UCLA has a really weak 3, I could see them putting them all the way up in UCLA's deal just to give them a decent 4 to go with a bad 3. Because I've noticed over the years they've done a good job trying to balance the 3 and 4. So if you have a weak 3, you're going to get a better 4. If you have a strong 3, you can get one of the weaker teams out.
Let's figure out.
And UIC.
Let's figure out.
UIC kind of looks like both.
Yeah. Let's figure out UCLA right now then. West Coast Conference champion was St. Mary's. That was their 5 seed. I don't necessarily think that jumps off the page as a strong 4 to match with a weak 3. But that is like our slam dunk West Coast 4 seed here for UCLA.
Cal Poly gets a 3?
Cal Poly's a good 3.
I think
they're kind of middle of the pack.
I think they will be.
Strength-wise.
I think they will be, yeah. I have St. Mary's in Eugene right now, but obviously there's a case to be made for UCLA. I was trying to validate where they went where'd they go last year? They went
St. Mary's was in Oregon last year.
Corvallis,
yeah. Washington State, you want to send them to Los Angeles and then we can slot St. Mary's in Oregon?
Yeah, I had Washington State at Nebraska, but at the same time, there's a lot of good options for Nebraska. So,
because then
I think any of those are
then
fine.
I think you could do your marriage of a strong 3, weak 4. Oh, that's not the screen. I don't know why this is acting up today, but then you could do like a hypothetical marriage of a strong 3, weak 4 on the West, or a weak 3. UIC getting sent west to UCLA with a strong 4 Washington State. Does that make sense?
It does. I just think the other part of it is my travel experience. And so I know it's harder to get to Eugene for a lot of teams from outside of the region.
Yeah.
But from where St. Mary's is, we have a direct flight to Eugene twice a day, whereas teams from all over the country can fly to LA. So that was my other logistical. And I don't know in baseball if they fly private.
No.
They might just do
it is commercial.
I don't
Not the 4 seeds.
Yeah. So that actually makes St. Mary's to Oregon a little bit more realistic.
Okay.
Yeah, those 4 seeds are grabbing Jimmy John's on a bus.
That's what I thought.
So you're a fan of possibly UCLA getting a strong 4 but a weak 3?
Well, I think Cal Poly with UCLA is the most logical because they're just right in that sweet spot.
I agree.
One of the weaker 3s, but probably still a 3. And then you would have the need for maybe a little bit better 4. And I looked at UIC, for example, as a frisky 4, like from a decent league, but didn't have a good RPI, won 2 titles, and they have a direct flight from Chicago all day long to LA. Just where I landed doesn't mean it's the right answer. But there is a thought process.
Cal Poly as the 3 is a perfect marriage because they were in Oregon last year as a 3 seed. So,
right, and I did know that. Yes.
Did Cal Poly? They didn't have a series against UCLA this year.
They
that was
played
USC, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yep. All right, let's go back to the Northeast and let's fill in some more of these. I think Rider, Binghamton, and Holy Cross are all great candidates to head to North Carolina. North Carolina's kind of always had a Northeast 4 seed. Holy Cross was there last year. Long Island was there 2 years ago. So I think that makes your Binghamton shout like solid for Georgia Tech or North Carolina. But also we could put Rider in Chapel Hill too.
Yeah, Rider would be good. They've been going south all the time. They played in Conway last, then they were in Louisiana Tech and Austin and Fullerton in their 4 last trips. So Rider's pretty ripe for UNC, just to send them somewhere different. And again, I doubt the committee looks at this as much as me, but Binghamton went to Athens and Stanford. So you're fine either way. Maybe just rank them in order based on that. I think Binghamton had a better season.
Yes.
Better RPI, but okay. So maybe just go in order based on strength.
All right. South Dakota State we seeded. I did not color code that one. So WAC with Tarleton, where do we want to send them? Texas or A&M? Lamar's kind of right in A&M's backyard, but they could be sent to Southern Miss too.
So I think with Tarleton and Lamar, they both have they're right on the bubble to be a 3 seed. So we probably need to figure that out before we lock them in anywhere. They're both very close.
Rocco, does it have anything to do with say I know that Lamar and Texas maybe played each other 2 times this year? Does playing teams in during the regular season have anything to do with trying to keep them away from the regionals?
Yeah, it's a great question. Especially, like in basketball, that would not be allowed to at least to play in the first game. But in baseball, there's nothing against it. You actually see it quite often. Obviously, Oregon and Oregon State's a great example this year. Of course, I think they only played twice. They were supposed to play more. There's nothing against it.
Okay.
And I don't know that they try to prevent it either. Obviously, you have the regional advisory committee just feeding them with all that information in the background. But, I haven't been able to detect that they actually are preventing these, because you find when the final bracket comes out, you're going to find about 6 or 7 examples where, these teams have seen each other a few times.
Right. Yeah, and it's it is usually just 1 or 2 midweek games, and then you're balancing the decision of do I keep them out of Texas because they played twice on a Tuesday, or do I send them to Alabama because of that? That's a good point.
I mean, up until this year, it's been always just geography
Yeah.
as the primary reason. And now with the 1 through 32 structure that Noah did a good job laying out, at least in those top two lines, we're going to have balance. And then I think it's also important to balance the 3s and the 4s. So you might see some exceptions of a few teams getting to travel further. But by and large, I still think geography will win, and they're not too worried about those midweek games.
So I always love hammering out the Northeast because those teams typically get screwed and get sent to tougher teams. But I do think it gets interesting here. We've got VCU as probably more of a strong 4. St. John's in the same boat, more of a strong 4. And Northeastern also a strong 4. I do think West Virginia is going to draw one of those 3. What's your read there?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's possible, especially like a VCU. I'd love to see who the other 2 teams are before I make a final decision, but that's a good placeholder for VCU.
Okay.
Northeastern did go to Florida State last year.
They did. As a 3 seed though, or a 2 seed.
They might have been a 2 actually. I think it was 2,
Mississippi
and Mississippi State was the 3.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see who's without dance partners right now. UCLA, Texas, Southern Miss, Florida State, Alabama, Texas A&M, and Mississippi State.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a team like Holy Cross, get sent wherever.
Yep.
I think I had them in Tuscaloosa today, but they're clearly a 4. So is Lipscomb. So I think you can do Lipscomb and Holy Cross wherever you want at this point. There's about 8 teams right now, and if Washington State actually wins this game, the list will go up to 9. 9 teams for 5 3-seed spots that I would have: Washington State, Northeastern, USC, Upstate, Lamar, Tarleton, all part of that, and even maybe VCU. I'm actually going to take another look at VCU just to be sure.
Okay.
And St.
John's is so St. John's does not have many quality wins outside of their Big East wins, but I actually think if there's a team that's flying under the radar because the schedule wasn't super tough, I do think it's the Johnnies.
Right. I don't think they're going to get all the way to a 3, but they're going to be worth another evaluation.
What does Northern Illinois look like? They got to be a 4,
yeah,
right?
Them too.
Yeah,
they could be a 3 as well.
You think?
They could be.
Okay.
Could be worth a look.
Yeah, they're.
I think the RPI is sitting in the 80s.
And the MAC had 2 RPI 50s teams.
They're 78.
Yeah,
the MAC was a strong.
So Northern
35 wins. Yeah.
No quad 1 wins. That'll hurt.
Yeah.
But I know that the Diamond Sports deal here, they were kind of high on those Huskies. We have multiple Huskies in play here, of course, with Northeastern in the mix.
All right.
But Northeastern's 80 in the DSR. Northern Illinois is 92. So that favors Northeastern there. If you look at
for the sake of time, I am just going to slot what I believe could work regionally. I'm throwing Tarleton in Texas. Texas A&M is going to get Lamar. Little Rock will go to Starkville.
That's a good one. I like that.
And then who's the other team that I was looking at here real quick? Down there in the south. Maybe that was it.
Lipscomb, did you get them on? Lipscomb?
Yeah, I put Lipscomb in Alabama just as the placeholder there.
That's fine.
I just didn't want to copy the Rocco Miller Bracketeer.org final projection as much. You said you had Holy Cross in Alabama. I was looking at it. How about this fun fact? We do not have a 4 seed from the Sunshine State this year.
That's true.
So we are going to get Bethune-Cookman once again.
Northeast team heading down to Tallahassee and Gainesville is very, very possible.
So you need to slot UIC in one of those 2 spots.
Okay.
They're not going to be a 3.
Let's do UIC and Southern Miss, and then St. Mary's at UCLA.
Yep, there you go. All right, that makes it
Yeah.
easy.
And I think eyeball test wise, I could see all of these remaining teams as threes.
Okay, I'll take your word for some of these.
For some of these. Lipscomb, they're gone. But I do think St. John's could be a.
Do you like St. John's? So St. John's over Tarleton. That's the one I'd probably have different. But,
Yeah.
We'll see how it
Okay.
shakes out.
Ben and I both believe that St. John's and Tarleton will be strong fours if they land as fours. So we are on the same page there. But one could sneak up to the three. I'm totally fine doing. Who went to? So we can do Little Rock in Austin, and then we have two Mississippi hosts. So just send the New York team to Mississippi. Because the two Mississippi and then Alabama, Auburn, like that, all of those 4 seeds are not going to be regional, So
I'd hate to see that travel day from New York to Starkville. That's going to
But I mean, I think you're strong, like a very strong 4 to the weakest host. I think that's my main reasoning there, Rocco.
Sure. Yeah, I like it. I like the group of death idea.
Like
that Georgia Southern, that 1 year Georgia Southern got the 16. That was one of my favorite regionals, even though they didn't win.
Yeah.
With Texas Tech and Notre Dame. And I forget who the 4 was. The 4 was awesome.
I had Notre Dame getting out of there, beating Tennessee. Like that was my big prediction that year, and that came through. So thank you for bringing that up so I can just keep pumping my tires on the reason why I built a good following.
Well done. Man.
Thank you.
Done.
So these last teams, I'll just insert them into in the back end of the 3 line here. And then we can talk bubble and then find some marriages in these regionals.
Sounds great.
Are there any that jump out as like good matches? Cal Poly, we already have Cal Poly in there. Northeastern, East Carolina, USC Upstate, Citadel, and Northern Illinois. I mean, immediately I'm thinking like one of those 3 Carolinas, North Carolina, Georgia Tech, Georgia. They're all strong ones, and these are all kind of, I would say, down the order 3s.
Yeah, I think the Citadel fits at a few spots, depending on your perception of them.
I think they're mid 40 RPI, right?
Down to 40, actually.
Down to 40, okay.
Number 4. Yeah, which is what impacted somebody's resume today.
All right, so.
And then I would also say if we're looking Northeastern, they'd probably be below the Citadel in the pecking order. If we're talking Upstate, probably below the Citadel as well. Upstate and Northeastern probably very close. I would lean Northeast. I'm a little bit more impressed with Northeastern because I thought Campbell was awesome, and to beat them twice in the same day is a big statement in my book.
Yeah. Upstate is a really good regional match, like travel-wise, to Atlanta.
Yeah. Or Athens.
I think
Athens too.
Northeastern, just travel-wise, like being in the CAA conference, like I could see them landing in North Carolina.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, I just think North Carolina, we've got really easy partners regionally. We don't have to.
I like that a lot. Northeastern hasn't played there before.
In North Carolina, over like a East Carolina.
The thing about ECU is like, and I know Rocco just told me this has nothing to do with
they played
UNC
decisions in the series,
but they play in a series, and they play in a series almost every year, which like I think that has a little bit more weight compared to just like a midweek, 2 midweek games.
Checks out.
I could be 1,000% wrong.
No, you are.
Just
you're right.
Yeah, my general take on East Carolina is that they are going to be in a favorable spot with their AD on the committee.
Yeah, I do agree with you there as well.
I had them going to West Virginia. I thought that would just make the party that much better because those two teams.
If that happens,
that would be great.
If that happens, you are basically signing the check for both JP and I to be flying into the Morgantown Regional. I just want you to know that.
You should be going into
that. That would be.
I like Command Center where I can watch all 16 regionals, but you're really trying to make that thing a party. Let's do it.
I think it's the one place. It's either there or Mississippi State now that Mississippi State's a host. Either way, it's a party for East Carolina, where it's like a regional they can win, and within realistic distance.
Yeah, I do think logically with the AD on the committee, it's not too far fetched. Not too far fetched.
Yeah, let's throw Liberty in a regional with West Virginia and East Carolina and see how those fan bases mesh together.
No, West Virginia is definitely getting like an SEC, ACC 2 seed.
I would love to put Tennessee there, but it's probably going to be like Arkansas. Yeah. It could be Arkansas. That would be pretty.
Yeah.
Arkansas or Ole Miss.
Throw Arkansas or Ole Miss, and that would be a lock for most beers drank at a regional site. 1,000%.
Wouldn't even be close.
How about Northern Illinois to Kansas? Kind of, I think they're not. Kansas isn't super strong, but also regionally, travel wise, kind of fits instead of making them fly somewhere.
What about Nebraska?
Yeah, Nebraska is one of your weaker ones. That was just my thought process there.
Right.
I mean,
do you want to move to bubble, Rocco?
No, we can slide in those weaker threes first. I think Northern Illinois would probably make more sense to go to like a Georgia or a Texas, even though it is a flight. Just because of Little Rock's a strong 4. So maybe put them in the Georgia, or actually you need to put the Citadel, I think, in Georgia.
Citadel's like a strong. If they climb to what'd you say, 40?
40.
Yeah,
they're
it's a
not
strong
necessarily.
3,
they're kind of in the mix of that bubble, So it's not strong, but they're not weak.
Or you could put them at Auburn too. Either one of those, because I'm just looking at the 4 seed. Alabama State and Long Island are 2 of the weaker 4s, so you need some meat there in the 3 spot.
Good point. Yeah, let's do that. Northern Illinois works. They're actually more of a weaker 3 than a middle 3, though. So let's do Northern Illinois. No, we can't do that. I'm sorry, because if we're trying to balance strength and weakness there.
You could put Louisiana. You could put Louisiana at the Auburn one to strengthen that one. That's where I keep landing.
Okay. Strong like 3 to go with a weak, or a weak 3 to go with a strong 4. I do like your Northern Illinois to Texas shout with us having Little Rock there.
Yep.
So, all right, weaker 3, stronger 4. Let's jump in. That's all of our AQs. Bubble. I do think these Sunbelt teams have thrown a massive kind of wrench into this year's bubble. We're talking about Louisiana, who we did slide into the field. They did some damage both today and yesterday, beating Texas State, who's also on that bubble, along with Troy. I do think maybe one of those are a candidate of being left out. I think Kentucky and Oklahoma are, should be bubble teams. I think Oklahoma's probably good. And what is going on with my share screen? And then Oklahoma the SEC worst team never seems to land in that last 4 in, Rocco. I don't know if that's an observation that you've landed on too. So I think Oklahoma, Kentucky are in, unfortunately, just logically me thinking, I don't know if I love that a ton. UTSA, NC State, The two MAC schools, Kent State, Miami, Ohio. Kent State does have the AD on the committee. Michigan, and this is where JP's Pitt comes into play, but I do think they are firmly down the pecking order there. TCU is also in this convo. I think they're maybe on the right side of the bubble. Give us your kind of instant view. Sorry, JP.
I just got one team you haven't mentioned. I'm just curious if you are totally out on them. The Mercer Bears.
Yeah, Mercer's in here too. Sorry.
No,
Totally
I was honestly just curious. That's just one of those that like you're gonna find out how much they like the RPI when they look at the Mercer Bears and whether they put them in or not.
I am just listing teams. Go ahead and say whatever is on your mind bubble wise. Just like who's comfortable, who should we just cross off immediately. Rocco, go ahead.
Okay, sounds good. Well, yeah, I think the Mercer Bears will be probably the most important topic of the day tomorrow, if it's not the Troy Trojans. So we'll just leave it at that. I would just say right now we already have Louisiana in a slot. Obviously, they're in. I think UTSA might not have been mentioned, but obviously, unfortunate circumstance, they didn't get to play a second championship game because of the format, and now they're in the at-large pool. But I think they would slot in for the just as a placeholder. Virginia Tech's a team that should be in the field. I agree with Kentucky. The reality is that with their 30th ranked KPI, this is where the KPI actually means something because it's a resume-based tool. When you're just trying to get the teams right that are going to be in, the KPI will have a little bit more influence, just like the RPI does, versus the DSR. And Kentucky's the strongest of the bubble teams at number 30, plus they're in the SEC. So anybody hoping they're going to miss the field is just not being realistic, I think. UC Santa Barbara, of course, will be in as a 3 seed, I believe. Same with Boston College, who we left out before. The other team that's really kind of a cliffhanger is TCU. We talked about them at the beginning of the show. And I believe that's most of the slots I had in entering this conversation. Then we have Mercer and Troy, the two most interesting resumes in the world, sponsored by Dos Equis. and we have Texas State, the Bobcats, a very, very interesting resume. And then you have Pittsburgh Panthers, who have been mentioned. So we got to keep them on the board. And, Kent State's at least worth a discussion with their AD on the committee, maybe Michigan if you want to. And that's probably where I run out of real estate.
Okay.
I guess I got a question. Obviously the argument is simple, the SEC versus the MAC, right? But when you're looking at resumes and you're talking about a team like Kentucky, who has 31 wins, 13 wins in the SEC, and then you compare them to Kent State, who has over 40 wins, 24-9 in the conference, won the regular season championship. Like, where do you make those decisions as far as valuing resume and strength of schedule compared to winning and just what you actually achieved on the season?
Great question. I think all of it matters. I don't think there's one category that's more important or less important than the other. It's just about your entire body of work and just, and you and I could have different opinions at the end of the evaluation. So I think you always want to take a look at, where they stack in terms of quad 1, quad 2, the strength of their schedule. That should all kind of be congruent together. I think it's also important to look at, traditionally at least, we'll see if this committee does it, because didn't really show up in that decision to give Mississippi State the host over Arkansas. But who did you beat that's going to be in the field above the bubble? And so that's a really important statistic that the committee traditionally talks about. I have it all listed. For example, if I look at NC State right now, I can tell you they beat Boston College, Miami, and East Carolina in either a series or a mini series. And, some of these teams will come to the table with really not a win. And that's where the mid-majors get really disadvantaged. If it's like, Kent State did win a series at Tennessee, which keeps them
having a 3-1 Q1 record is what kind of keeps that like intriguing to me.
Very intriguing. And it being Tennessee on the road is like even louder. High Point having a series win at Florida could have made them interesting. There's some other parts of the resume that's not as strong. and they'll probably fall off. But yes, that's where it gets interesting. I think with Mercer, you're looking at a team that got swept at Western Carolina, but then on the last week of the season, they went and won at Georgia Tech, which is about one of the most elite things you can do in one day in this sport. At the same time, the rest of their season, we weren't really talking about them as a serious contender, and it did some funny things to their numbers, and now we have to figure out what to do. Everybody's got different stories. You have to basically find one or two of these options that you feel the best about, that you're the most impressed by. And maybe it's a team like Troy who split with Georgia in 2 games. They split with Alabama in 2 games. They won a Campbell series, who unfortunately for them didn't win the CAA title, but they have a Louisiana series win, a Texas State series win in the regular season. They beat Southern Miss in the tournament. So there's just so many different things to look at, and then you have to just kind of snap the chalk at some point.
Now, do you think one of those things, sorry, just real quick, does like program pedigree or history have anything to do with it? Like when you look at Troy compared to maybe like a Kent State did get to Omaha, but I guess a situation where, like, I don't know if the MAC has ever been a 2-bid league. Like, does that have anything to do with it?
It shouldn't. I think every season is supposed to be treated as its own entity, and these results and these teams are brand new results and teams. So we could take away from previous decisions, but it's more about the process of how those decisions were made instead of the actual teams that either suffered or gained from those processes. So as long as you stay with the process, not to get too nerdy about that, but that should lead you to I call it the path to clarity. So you need to have that path to clarity and to be able to get to that final decision. And I just think, if Troy ended up being left behind again, which I heard the coach today with an amazing press conference, it's just the way that the path took this year's committee. I don't think it's anything intentional. I also think in college baseball, too, there's been history of horse trading. And so I don't want to ignore it. Like, as somebody who just studies the committee, if one conference got hooked up with 3 hosts, like the Big Ten, and if Michigan was closer to the bubble, it'd be easier to maybe say, okay, we won't take this bubble team and we'll give it to the Sun Belt. And we've seen that happen. Noah and I have talked about it. But in the immediate time being, maybe that is a TCU being left out, right? Like, if it was negotiated to get Kansas a top 8, that would be a huge deal for the Big 12.
Right.
So I'm keeping my eye on all that stuff, but we won't know any of that till the show anyway. So I think for the sake of our exercise, we just take it straight up for what we know.
All right. There's a really cool tool on 11.7.com that Dimitri's made this year. I think 3 of the most polarizing resumes that are going to be talked about this year on the bubble are Texas State, Troy, Mercer. The great thing about these 3 teams is they've all played each other, right? Mercer went to Troy, or actually, no, I think Troy went to Mercer, and the Bears won that series. Troy won a series over Texas State, as Texas State's 1-2 against the Trojans there. Record-wise, like, Mercer's got 44 wins, Troy 32, Texas State 36. SoCon had a good year. There are a handful of teams that are, top 60, but I mean, you have the Sun Belt fighting for 5 tournament spots, and all, I think, top 5, their top 5 teams, I think, are all top 42 RPI wise. I do think that DSR does not love either Troy or Texas State as much as it does Mercer. Rocco, these specific teams you've already mentioned will be quite interesting conversations tomorrow. How do you decipher the 3, and can you power rank these for us?
Yeah, it's tough, right? I think I've gotten to a good spot in the Troy versus Texas State debate. So if you just want to take Mercer out of it for a second,
okay.
I like the fact that Troy. I just listed off some of their impressive feats at the top. Of course, splitting with Alabama, splitting with Georgia. They played both those Georgia games on the road. Obviously, that aged extremely well. They got to play Southern Miss 6 times. They go 2-4, but you also saw the way that one game ended yesterday. It could easily have been 3-3. And you look at a series win over at Louisiana, a direct head-to-head at Texas State in San Marcos, 2 out of 3. there's just so much going for this Troy resume. The biggest knock on Troy is that 32-29 overall record, which I get it. That would be hard for even an SEC team to get in with such a tight 500 record, but they played. It ended up becoming the third hardest schedule in the country. Coaches right. It was the hardest yesterday for a few hours. Ends up being the third hardest as of right this second. But I think, they only played 8 games in quad 4. And they didn't play anybody lower than Florida A&M and Alabama State, who just played for the SWAC title. Outside of those 2 teams, which are only 1 game each, every one of their games, at home at least, was in the top 115. And then they played a lot of teams on the road. So overall, they finished with a 13-15 road record, which isn't quite ideal. I'd love to see them 500 or better. But anyway, with Texas State, they just lost a few more series than Troy. Obviously finished below Troy in the overall standings with 16 regular season wins to Troy's 17. Lost the series to Troy as well. And they top out with a split with Texas A&M, not quite as good as a split with Georgia and Auburn. And they also, they won once at Coastal Carolina. They lost the Louisiana series. So I just think Troy's got a lot more to throw at the committee than Texas State. So if it's down to those 2, if we all agree that the Sun Belt's not getting everybody in, unfortunately for Texas State, I think that makes them a little easier to cross off the list.
Okay. I actually appreciate the insight there. I think I would have, before you deciphered that, I think I still would have sided with the Bobcats, looking at some of the metrics wise and overall record. But they have the series win. Troy's playing good ball at this time. Texas State's playing good ball at this time. But I do agree that Troy went out of their way and scheduled a tough schedule. In this week bubble, I do think that has to matter. And that brings me to similar record-wise, Troy and Kentucky. So you just argued Troy and Kentucky is a complete enigma, where we haven't really seen this before, as they still are kind of defying RPI wise. And, they've got a 13-17, 13-18 aggregate ACC or SEC record. They didn't really schedule extremely tough in the non-con, and you could look at the 130 and say, oh, that could have been better. You look at the programs that they played, and I don't necessarily argue that those programs have necessarily been top 100 RPI teams regularly in the recent couple of years. I don't think Kentucky's got a strong resume. I don't see a team that knocks them out. And the fact that you're kind of pointing me in the direction of, I think you think Troy's in, I think Kentucky's in, and it's hard to argue too. Can I get your opinion on Kentucky?
Yeah, like I said, I just think we're at a point where the SEC only getting 12 in is a little bit of a disappointment for the league. That's, obviously a little greedy when it comes to getting everybody in. But I think with LSU and Vandy being down this year, South Carolina obviously being down as well, Kentucky being the only really true bubble team left to get them to that 12 bids that they usually almost always get, and the fact that they're 30th in the KPI. I mean, there's just a lot there that the committee can just say, okay, whatever. We're putting Kentucky as a 3. Everybody else will be a 2 seed and higher, and off we go. I really don't think they're looking at Kentucky this closely. I think they're just in.
Me too.
Like it or not, it's just this is kind of a political game too, right? And that's just where it stands with them. Obviously, if Texas State played Kentucky head-to-head, probably just as good of a chance for the Bobcats to win the series. But it's just unfortunately not the way it really works. I do think with Mercer and UTSA and Troy, like that's tough. And I think TCU, like I just have a lot of TCU and NC State. I have a lot of problems. Like those are the teams I'm struggling with the most, I think.
Okay.
I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, for me, I personally think for Mercer's case, like going 44-15 in a baseball season, regardless of what conference you're in and who you're playing, like that's tough to do. And I think they also made an effort to I mean, they went out to Corvallis. You said they scheduled that series against Troy. Like they made an effort in their non-conference. And I just think like obviously I get it if they don't, like, if it comes down to them not getting in. I just think like it sucks that you can't reward a team that made an effort to schedule non-conference and won 44 games and had a damn good year. I just hope, like, same goes for Kent State. That's how I feel about both of those teams right now. Like, I wish that we could just put them in, but unfortunately it's not how it works.
You're right.
I guess like over like a TCU's resume. Like they won 44 games. Like I would rather go with that team, but I get it.
I agree with you. My soul rests in the mid-major land as well, and obviously it's tough to do. What they did compared to an average power conference team that goes through the motions some weeks, and other weeks they show up for a couple of games. But the overall talent obviously is at the top, and so it's tough to decide. Here's your argument for expanding the field, everybody. some bad words right there. It's not going to happen. No. It's not going to happen. But yeah, TCU and NC State, like, I have serious questions on both of these teams. I am worried about the politics of the ACC more than the Big 12. Less worried about the Big 12 politics. I just think ACC for a long time now has been the clear top two with the SEC in this sport. We had a College World Series a couple of years ago where it was all SEC and ACC, right? Yep. So let's be real. But I think you look at NC State, the way they just fell apart with injuries, unfortunately for them. They show up to the conference tournament and give up 20-plus runs to the worst team in the bracket. They clearly aren't a regional team right now. But they did beat North Carolina on the final day of the season to go 1 out of 3. If you look at let's just pretend you're me and you don't know anything about NC State and you're just looking at the numbers. They're coming in at 36 in the DSR. They're top 35 or so in the KPI, and they're right there within striking range of the low 40s RPI, right? Or did they fall to 50? They might have fell to 50, actually. But they're measuring out a lot better than some of these teams that I think we all agree we like more. Actually, NC State's 51.
They're 51.
RPI. Yeah, but their KPI comes in, I believe, is it 35? I've got them at, okay, they're 40 in that, and the DSR has still got them 37. So
let me ask you this about NC State. Does the politics, since you mentioned politics, their head coach, Elliott Avent, who's been there for 20, 30 years, just announced that he is retiring after this last season. Does the politics of that move have anything to do with sending him out in good spirits and giving him a bubble bid?
You would have to imagine it could. I mean, we are dealing with humans in the selection committee, and all these guys have some level of baseball backgrounds on top of being athletic directors and whatnot. Yeah, I just think the part, and I saw the announcement as well. I'm glad you brought that up. The part about Pittsburgh going on that run to the semifinals yesterday, beating Florida State on the way before losing to North Carolina. Now you've got two teams that basically, got to the bubble in two different directions. Pittsburgh was way out, played their way up to the bubble. NC State was in for a while, obviously stubbed their toes down the stretch. Now they both land at the bubble. Now, if you're going into that meeting as the ACC rep, which, by the way, is the chairman, the Florida State athletic director, your whole thing is like, I'm not leaving this meeting until I get one of these two in. And that's kind of where I got stuck putting NC State in, because I just think body of work, NC State's body of work's better than Pitt. I agree Pitt's probably a better regional team next week. And now NC State's got this heartwarming, send-off as well, potentially.
Yeah. Oh, man, you bringing that up. I do think NC State's going to weasel their way into this thing.
Well, it's the first thing I thought of. Obviously, like, not that he retired just to get in the tournament 1 year, but it was like if he had his mind kind of made up, like the time of releasing that, I questioned whether there was some reasoning behind it or not.
Oh, so definitely.
Here's my biggest thing is, like, strength of schedule wise, NC State's good. Typically you need a top 50 to be on the right side of the bubble. The ACC conference record, you do not see under 500 ACC teams get in on the right side of the bubble. And I'll even point to 2022 NC State, like the year after 2021, that whole COVID situation in the College World Series. You would have thought they would you would have thought they would have received a little bit of a sympathy bump. They go 14-15 in league, 36-21 overall, RPI 32, strength of schedule 26, and they were left out. I know year after year things change. This bubble is certainly soft, but I think when you're looking at past history, there is precedent where NC State gets left out. But the fact that the ACC rep is the chairman this year, the ACC didn't really have a team to fight for bubble wise for regional hosting purposes. I do think what Rocco says makes sense. Like, you are going into that meeting to win one argument, and it's political. You're going to be able to waver on 3 to 4 things, but if I get out with this one thing, I'm happy. And I would not be surprised if that's NC State this year. Like looking at NC State Pitt, I do think it's a really interesting comparison, just the two of them. But Pitt aggregate 14-20, 13-20, whatever it is, it's a complete no-go for me. I would choose the Wolfpack over Pitt personally, and I went to college in the city of Pittsburgh. Like, I'm not even being biased there. I just think NC State, of the two, is the tournament team, and it makes sense that the ACC rep may leave with the team on the right side of the bubble.
Yeah, I think everything's kind of aligning to go with NC State over Pitt, especially like I just noticed an 11-19 conference record, especially considering like, I don't know, I guess this is another topic. Would you guys consider the ACC having a down year with some of the teams like Clemson and Louisville not being as good, or would you consider them having a stronger year with some of the teams like, I guess Boston College has had some history of success, but I don't know. What are your guys' overall thoughts on kind of how the ACC shook out this year?
Well, I think, there was it's interesting because I think they actually finished closer to the SEC than they typically would, mainly because the SEC themselves also had unusual activity at the bottom with LSU, Vandy, and South Carolina. Missouri's been bad, so I think that wasn't a surprise. But also, I think the ACC, on the flip side of your argument there, they had two of their strongest teams they've had in years, with Georgia Tech and North Carolina being elite.
Yeah.
And that helped bring the league up. Obviously, Florida State's numbers are amazing despite, not having a huge elite win on their resume. They played well against everybody else. And I think that just brought the rest of the league up, despite Louisville, Clemson, even the Bay Area teams a little bit down this year. And I think it kind of, as a whole, closed the gap a little bit with the SEC, surprisingly, because there are so many ways to look at that. But maybe even help the Big 12 themselves, stay close to the top two on the flip side. So it's been an interesting year from that dynamic.
I think to your point too, like I would argue when you're talking about Georgia Tech and North Carolina, like this is potentially the strongest two ACC teams we've seen in a while.
Yep, I agree. I mean, there's other years where 3 or 4 of them have made the top 8, but to be like the number 1 or 2 and then a 2 in the top 4, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Last thought I had on Pitt, by the way, quads 1 through 3. So you just take their quad 4 games out of it. Pitt is 21 wins, 24 losses. That is just really bad, honestly.
All right. So we've got 3 open spots. The teams on that like bubble conversation that I slotted in were Louisiana, Oklahoma, Virginia Tech, Kentucky. That leaves us with TCU, Mercer, Troy, NC State, UTSA, Texas State, all with reasonable arguments to get in. I do think that the Sun Belt overall is not going to get all 3 of their bubble teams in. I'm all right leaving Texas State out when you look at the microscope of Louisiana, Troy, Texas State. UTSA is certainly interesting. Worse metrics, I think, across the board compared to Mercer. Troy is a little bit similar in DSR. Off the top of my head, I don't know that to be certain.
One thing I know right off the bat that I think could help UTSA's case is just getting to like 38 wins, co-championship regular season. And then, I mean, this past weekend, like what Rocco said, getting all the way to the championship and not having it be double elimination for them. I don't know. I think there is a decent case for UTSA there. I think the American, obviously I'm an American alum, but UTSA was not in the American when I was in it. But I don't know. I think that's a strong enough, like, I would see if we had, like, not put any of these teams on paper, and if you ask me if ECU and UTSA get in, both of them, I would say yes. But
yeah, so I think we've got 3 open spots for 6 teams here. TCU, Mercer, Troy, NC State, UTSA, Texas State. Rocco, lead us in any sort of direction here. What do you think?
Well, I'm glad JP said that. I mean, I really feel pretty strongly about UTSA. Maybe it's because I was at the tournament for a couple days this week. Got to see that club. They're just a strong, confident club. Went to super regional last year. Obviously, that doesn't matter for this year, but for them it does. Their confidence level and the way they went about their business throughout the league play. Minus a couple slip-ups. Everybody kept losing series just to Memphis. We were joking about that when we were there. But you know, that just shows that league was strangely deep, but the metrics didn't really show it. Like being at the conference tournament and not seeing Tulane or South Florida there just kind of shows how everybody cannibalized each other. And UTSA still came out on top. They got to play East Carolina 5 times if you factor in these last 2 days, and they went 3-2 against East Carolina. We're not really having any debates anymore about the Pirates. So at minimum, UTSA is even with East Carolina, but I think you could even give them the nod if you had to compare the two. And I just don't see with that championship factor, with the the KPI likes them quite a bit as well. I think that's really important for the just getting in. They're 41. I think that's good enough. The DSR has got them 36. They really didn't do anything that horrible during the year to kill themselves, and enough quality wins at the top. I think there's got to be a home for the Roadrunners.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay. Yeah. Personally, I had UTSA out, so now I've got to remove one of these. I think of all the sorry.
Here I go. Mercer was my one team that I was kind of backing going into it, and then when I look at these 3, I'm gonna I don't know, man. I don't know.
I'm still there with the Bears over these 2 specifically. The thing with UTSA that's tough for me personally is the strength of schedule. If you have a top 50 strength of schedule, you typically have gotten in. Texas State does have that, and I just don't know if the Sun Belt's going to get 5 teams, right, Rocco? You're muted, by the way, but yeah, I don't know. I had it Mercer, Texas State, UTSA. That specific 3-team example. Rocco,
I agree. Yeah, they're not getting 5. I hate to say that, but it's just not the reality based on all these teams being so close to the cut line. This is where I really think whether it's Troy, UTSA, NC State, TCU, and Mercer, those 5, and if there's 3 spots for those 5, I think that's where we're at. I think, unfortunately, for Texas State, Pitt, Campbell, Michigan, I think they're clearly behind in that race.
I think we could all – I'd be the first one to tell you that I'm leaving TCU for sure out here.
Really?
I just think like –
kind of like that. I kind of like that.
I watched them all year, and dude, the talent is there as far as you look at the roster preseason. I mean, I picked them to be in Omaha. I picked them to win the Big 12, but the injuries that they had at the beginning of the year and that they're still going through right now, they just have not – they haven't put together like just 2 or 3 weeks alone of good baseball.
I'm with you. Just the fact that, again, we're talking like very political races here, the Big 12 does not have a bubble team. Maybe Rocco, hypothetically, that Sun Belt AD, Big 12 AD trade that happened last year, that rears its ugly head this year, and the Sun Belt gets all 5, and TCU's left out.
I'm here for that. I'm here for that. If that happens, I'm here for that. Like, I would love that. But I think it will be interesting to see, because the SoCon, not to go away from the graphic on the screen here, but the SoCon doesn't have a representative.
No.
But that the Mercer, including Mercer, might be one of those greater good of college baseball decisions. Like, this team found a way to get in the top 30, even if they didn't have all the opportunities that everybody else had. They got one crack at Georgia Tech down the stretch. If they don't win that game, nobody's even talking about them or thinking about them. They go there and win the dang game. Then they sweep ETSU on top of that. Obviously,
and also just being so close to that program, I do know this will not be taken into account in that committee room. But their other 3 Q1 games, because they have the 1 win over Georgia Tech, they've got the sweep loss to Oregon State. They flew in, they landed late Thursday night, and then we're playing Pacific time zone starting 10 p.m. local time first pitch. So I don't know, just really tough under the microscope, magnifying glass, one specific series that they played, because outside of that, their schedule wasn't too tough, but they've got the series win over Troy. And I do think that's what ultimately I come back to. And I say, like, that should be a trump card, especially when these two teams are being compared in the bubble. If Troy's in, I don't see how you leave Mercer out either.
We just need another spot for both of them. You know, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
I just think if the other thing on that is, I would normally give that a lot of weight, but with the games being played in Macon, 2 out of 3 is, if all things else are equal, they're supposed to win 2 out of 3 at home. A sweep would have made a big difference, or a 2 out of 3 at Troy would have made a big difference. But with that, I think you have to keep digging, because 2 out of 3 at home's probably what's supposed to happen if both teams are even. And then, and then it just comes down to, is Troy's overall record, just being 3 total games over 500, is that the difference maker? Because they are nowhere near 40 wins, despite all the great teams they played against.
But then I guess that do you see Sunbelt only getting 3 of their 5? I do think the Sunbelt gets 4.
Yeah.
If that happens, then that's where I agree with JP, that maybe we got to get TCU out of the field, because that's the only other way the math works.
Yeah.
Because I do think NC State, as we discussed, has their own pathway in, and then we're down to 2 spots, and in that event, it would have to be Troy and Mercer with no TCU. Or maybe it's just down to Troy versus TCU. I don't know.
Interesting. JP, what's your final call here of these 5? Who's getting left out?
I mean, I'm still I'm leaving out TCU. I think even when you pulled up the TCU NC State, that's an argument too. But personally, I would like to value win total and just performance and winning to a certain extent. And for me, that's where I'm putting Mercer and UTSA in, no doubt. From that, I don't know. I think there's something to be said. You definitely use RPI to measure. You have to use these metrics, but I think at the end of the day, you got to win games too, and you got to play good teams, but you also got to win games. So that's where UTSA and Mercer, for me, I just think they have to be in.
Yeah, I think I'm there too. I think TCU's out. You look at the factor. I was just looking at this too. Noah, TCU's there at 43, but Troy's up there at 38. Mercer, of course, buried. That's the risk. But Mercer's got that nice and shiny 28 RPI. And then you look at, NC State is slightly above TCU, and so is UTSA.
Yeah. I just think, you use the argument of the ACC AD is going to get a team in on this bubble. I mean, the Big 12 AD's there for a purpose too.
It's Kansas State, by the way.
Yeah,
so.
it's K-State.
Not sure how. Yeah,
they're not in the convo.
He's a nice guy. I've met him.
Yeah, last year he screwed TCU. I do think he'll try to fight for these Horned Frogs this year.
Yeah, I just wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to screw the Big 12 every year. So if they give two hosts and Kansas the top 8 seed, here it is. This is the
exactly.
Well, if Kansas gets announced at the beginning of the show as a top 8, I'm feeling really good that TCU's not getting it. It's just how it is. It's just can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
All right. So we've come to the agreement.
The right thing to do would be to put NC State as the team out, but I just don't see that.
No, neither do I.
We're getting some hate in the comments from our Horned Frog fan tuning in.
Oh, Ben and I were talking about this last night on the 11.7 live stream. I see it coming. Like, it's coming.
It's tough. I mean, nothing against any of these teams, honestly. Like, we'd love to see a path for any of them to get in. It's just the process is leading us here. That's all.
Yeah. Alrighty.
And I think TCU is a team too. Like, you get a really good Tommy Lepore or Mason Brassfield start, like they could make something interesting in any regional.
So Rocco, I know you said you don't talk to anybody on this. The funny part about this is I was the one that kind of brought this up as a real possibility to both Ben and Dimitri at 11.7, and they're like, no way, TCU's good. But like the more you talk about it, man, like none of the metrics are good. The heaviest weight in favor of TCU is the 17 Big 12 wins. How much weight does that truly have, though? I do think if there's one team that we have currently in that I could see getting left out is Troy, in favor of Texas State and TCU. I personally had Texas State and TCU in instead of Troy and UTSA coming into this exercise today. That's why I was so hesitant on just making that final move, because this is a little bit louder than I thought it was going to be. But if you guys are good, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't want to rule Texas State out. I think there's different ways you can look at the Bobcats' body of work and some of the things they did on the road that really impress. But I just think if they end up getting compared with Troy, which is somewhat organic, it's going to be really tough for them to win that direct comparison, and then you kind of go from there. But it really depends on how they go about it. Like if they throw all 7 teams in a pile, and then you're just comparing all 7 together, then Texas State has different paths to stand out and not be next to Troy anymore. It's kind of like that same example we talked about with Nebraska in their pecking order. And that's what this will become as well for the actual committee, as an actual pecking order. I just think also with TCU, I'm looking at them here again. Their best series win of the year was at Kansas State by the Quads, and that's not a tournament team. They did have individual wins against Arkansas and Kansas, which were really good. Obviously, those 2 teams would be hosts. But for actual series, they lost to UCLA. They lost to West Virginia. They lost to Oklahoma State. That was a sweep. Lost to Arizona State. And they lost to UCF. So they had 6 opportunities to play an entire series against teams that are in the actual NCAA tournament, and they went 0-6.
Yeah.
And these are data points that the committee will have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I'm with you guys.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else. Honestly, I've mentioned it on multiple different shows. Like, this is still unfortunately in my playing days, we were always a tournament or bust team. We never had the fortunate I didn't even know what RPI was until I was done playing. So I'm very much still kind of learning and analyzing a little bit every year as far as how these decisions are made. I'm more just spitballing for what I would like to see more than anything. So,
yeah, the Americans got some representation on the committee. I really struggle seeing AAC, or not even AAC abbreviation anymore, but the American sneaking 2 teams in the back door and the Big 12 not getting a bubble team in. That's really tough. These two specifically.
It's the East Carolina AD. I think that's important to call out because he is a very involved baseball person as an athletic director. Obviously, that's a huge part of the revenue for the entire East Carolina athletics. And he knows they went 2-3 against that UTSA team and how even they were. It was a really good game yesterday as well. UTSA was better today. It was a 1-0 game. I just think he will do the right thing and go to bat for the Roadrunners as well. And they'll get a fair shake, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think we're good there. Yeah, Mercer, Troy. Did I screw this up on our page? We only had 3 spots for those 5. This stupid thing keeps disappearing on us. But yeah, I do remember saying we only had 3 spots for the 5. So we just eliminated only we were talking 6 with Texas State, TCU gone. I think we need to still eliminate one more. Mercer, Troy, NC State.
So it's probably Mercer or Troy has to go. Yeah, that's what my chart has as well.
Yeah, Mercer, Troy, UTSA is the final 3.
I would go Mercer, but I could see the argument for Troy.
Yeah.
You're eliminating Mercer?
I would put Mercer in.
Me too.
Yeah, I think it probably, especially if my whole thing here, guys, I'll be transparent, is I just want to be as accurate as I can and do what I think the committee is going to do, not necessarily what I would do.
Yeah.
And I think based on the one clue we have, which is Mississippi State being stronger in the RPI and all the metrics than Arkansas, if that pattern holds true on the bubble, then it's Mercer for sure.
Yeah.
In over Troy. And I think that's just one where, Mercer's the only team without an AD or anybody there in the committee room. That's just one where, like, hey, nobody wins. We'll give this last spot to Mercer. Stop the arguing.
Let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here. So, yeah, I think that's where I'm going to land now that we know what we know.
So, NC State,
UTSA, and Mercer.
UTSA and Mercer. All right. So this thing on the left was 1 spot off. Troy. So Sunbelt in this example only has 3 teams.
It's tough.
It's tough.
Maybe you got to give Southern Miss the top 8 now. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Got to rethink that again.
Yeah. Alrighty. Let's start filling these 2s and 3s out. So let's do these. These are easy because they're basically telling us where they're going to go. So 17 through 20 is going to be sorted 16 through 16. The only rule, you can't send them to a conference foe or opponent there. We already have Oregon State slotted in because it makes sense regionally. Arkansas, Ole Miss. Actually, we can't do Oregon State because we've got 2 SEC teams here. Oregon State's got to go somewhere because Arkansas, Ole Miss cannot go to Texas A&M or Mississippi State.
They sent Oregon to Texas A&M 2 years ago. Do you think Oregon State could land there?
As a regional or a super regional? That was a super regional, I think.
That was a super. You're right.
Yeah.
But that probably is where Oregon State lands.
So yeah, and I would just say between Arkansas and Ole Miss, Arkansas is the closer team to Oregon by a little bit. So they would go there, and then you would have to send Ole Miss to West Virginia, party on, and then of course USC's stuck in Starkville.
All right, Wake Forest, Jacksonville State, Cincinnati, and Tennessee. those four, any order, will land for us specifically in this projection in Southern Miss, Florida State, Alabama, or Nebraska with their 1 seeds there.
Please send Cincinnati to Lincoln. That is a 6.5-hour drive from me, and that would be the most perfect scenario for me being
JP
there.
being a Cincy Elon alum, currently lives in Metro Denver. Rocco.
Oh yeah, that's a fun drive. I know somebody who did that drive when I went to the Nebraska football game back in the day. Anyway, that was a blast. Jacksonville State. No, Jacksonville State's going to go to Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense regionally too.
With the committee member as well, JSU. That one I'm feeling very confident on.
Okay.
Then with Wake Forest, it's amazing we don't have an SEC team here. That's why you were going there. So I guess Wake Forest will just go to Southern Miss. Yep, that makes sense. Then we can get Cincinnati over to Nebraska.
Let's go. Please. Please.
Strength-wise, I don't know how they do that because Wake Forest, I guess we have them ranked highest. They have the best RPI. I wonder if they go to Nebraska.
I mean, you'd probably figure Tennessee goes to Nebraska, but because the Florida State AD probably doesn't want anything to do with Tennessee. But
no, you're right.
But you guys can decide. That's fine. They're both legal options for us.
Sorry, JP. The Florida State AD is going to choose Cincinnati to face.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough travel.
Tough travel. And it's always super hot there early. Whatever these dates are, May 30th or something, it's going to be hot as hell.
All right, teams ranked 25 through 28. Coastal Carolina, Oklahoma, Miami, Liberty. They will head to 5 through 8, one of the 4. Texas, Auburn, Florida, Kansas. We've got 3 SEC in that group. Oklahoma is the only SEC here. They've got to go to Kansas, but it does make perfect sense regionally.
That's great. And I think Liberty will go to Florida.
Oh, you know what? We had Oklahoma as a 2 seed. So we did have – do we agree with Oklahoma as a 2, Rocco?
Yeah, I had them as a lower 2, but I still have them as a 2.
Really? Oh, that, I guess, takes me by surprise. So that allows Troy in.
I feel like something's off, though, because mine's got – do you have UCF in there?
Yep.
Do you have Virginia, ASU, Miami?
Virginia, ASU, Miami, yep.
And Oklahoma State, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I was wondering if you did Oklahoma instead of Oklahoma State.
Oh, did I?
I think so.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
All right. No, then we're
your math was
fine.
right.
Yeah, hold on.
Yep,
Oklahoma State.
That's actually Oklahoma State.
Yep. No, that checks out. Okay. No, we're good.
Yep. So I put Liberty in Gainesville.
So Oklahoma's, I mean, so there's no SEC teams in this 4. That works perfectly. Liberty to Gainesville.
Yeah, I think so. And then I would put
over Miami.
Sorry, it is Miami. It is Miami.
I mean, they did play a series against each other, and they do pretty much every year.
Yeah, they're going to do Miami because Miami hasn't gone there in a long time, so they're going to bring that back. That's got like nostalgia attached to it, and ticket sales.
And yeah, I can't lie there.
Coastal Carolina would probably have to go to Auburn in this case.
The only reason I'm hesitant about that is I feel like they gave, and it was like kind of a tough draw for Auburn. Like that was one that I know Auburn fans talked about right when this was announced. Was like, shit, we got matched up with Coastal, so. Okay. I don't know if they would send them there.
That's a great point. Let's hold off on Coastal for a second, but I think Oklahoma State to Texas makes a lot of sense. As former rivals in the Big 12.
Miami's an easy send to Auburn, too.
Yeah, they are. I can live with either one. Coastal, I think, is going to have to go to Kansas either way.
I would say, and Coastal hosted Florida in their regional last year.
Exactly. That's why I'm trying to avoid that one, too.
Yeah.
There's no set rule, but they are getting better at avoiding that stuff.
Okay.
They've screwed it up before too, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But they actually have it written in the rules now. I have a printout. Anyway.
Really?
Even though sometimes they don't remember to read them.
All right. That dreaded last 4 in the 2 seed line, they're getting sent to the top 4 teams in any order. But we've got Arizona State, Missouri State, Virginia, and Boston College. That's 2 ACC teams. We have 2 ACC in the top 4 in Georgia Tech, North Carolina. So Boston College and Virginia, who's the unlucky one and gets sent west to UCLA?
I think it's Boston College. Whoever you have lower. Who do you have lower?
BC.
Okay.
Which like that means Virginia to Georgia.
Yep. And then probably Arizona State could go to either one. Missouri State could go to either one.
Okay. So strength-wise, I just think if you ask the committee members, they probably least want to face Arizona State of the 2.
Yep. Springfield, Missouri doesn't fly very many places, but I think Atlanta's one of them.
Yeah. Okay.
So that'll work for them.
All righty. Then we've got these all have been filled in. All right. We're looking for reasonable locations for these guys. Here on the 3 seed lines.
UCF could go to Florida.
Yep.
That works.
Santa Barbara would go to Oregon.
Could see UTSA going to a Southern Miss or A&M. Yeah.
They went to Texas last year, so I keep
A&M
for this year.
Yeah, I'd also do think that they're probably a weaker 3.
Yeah, they could go to Kansas too. That's just north.
Yeah, they could, but Kansas, I doubt they're getting a regional without a power conference team.
Yeah, that's a good candidate for Kentucky actually to go to Kansas.
Yeah,
okay. That works. Sorry, guys.
No problem.
For those on the podcast side wondering what in the world's going on, I don't even know, but my computer's freaking out right now. All right. Louisiana, Oklahoma, Virginia Tech, NC State, UTSA, with Southern Miss, Florida State, Alabama, Nebraska, Texas A&M, and Mississippi State looking for 3 seeds. Louisiana could go to either Mississippi State or Texas A&M. Or actually, we already have Louisiana in at Auburn.
Correct.
We are missing a team, though.
I'd probably put Mercer at Florida State or Alabama. Yeah, I guess it would be Florida State. He's going to give himself a nice draw. I still like UTSA to Texas A&M, but it's up to you. NC State would go find either Starkville or Alabama. Actually, Alabama might be better.
So Oklahoma's got to go to.
Oh, they got to go to the
Southern Miss or Nebraska.
Southern Miss, okay. Well, Nebraska would be fun.
Where did I screw this up here?
That would be another old Big 12 matchup.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Or Big 8, back when it was the Big 8.
The Big 8. Oklahoma can't go there because they have Tennessee. So we're going to have to put Oklahoma in Southern Miss.
Southern Miss.
Ooh, and then Virginia Tech could go to Mississippi State. Who are we missing here?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out on the side while you guys were rattling them off. Didn't want to interrupt, but
NC State?
NC State's in. Alabama.
No.
Do we have Northeastern in?
Yeah.
East Carolina's in for sure.
Did you put? Yeah, Kentucky's.
I have really hindered the smoothness of this podcast.
I know. I was literally just about to say, like, once
Oh,
we
we're
plugged that
missing.
last team in, like, damn, this went very smooth.
Do you have more than
Troy was our answer.
Troy's out.
Troy.
Yeah. Trying to bring him back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rescued
Okay.
from the dead.
Yeah.
Troy. Probably.
Do you have any duplicates?
No, doesn't look like it. Is it Troy?
No, we left Troy out.
We left him out.
I have Cal Poly listed twice. Jesus, I'm all over the place here.
Okay. So we have room for Troy? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
we have room for Troy.
Troy's back.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
crazy.
Wow, this has easily been my worst year doing this with you, Rocco. But all right.
Are we sure? You might want to triple check that. Because on my end, I'm looking at my own board. I don't have room for Troy. So,
is there any of the teams that we included that you did not? Mercer?
I actually just put Mercer in over TCU. That was really my only difference.
UTSA, NC State, Kentucky.
Yep.
Okay.
Boston College.
I did have Cal Poly in there twice, and I don't know how that happened.
Well, if you did, then
all right, this got real sloppy at the end. I think in practice, everybody kind of understood what happened here. I can't believe I did that. I screwed that up royally. But Rocco, as I continue to try to scan and make a last minute save here, I appreciate you jumping on for now. This is either the third or fourth straight year you've done this with the college baseball experience. It's a lot of fun. I do enjoy talking to you about college baseball and bracketology in specific, but also you do a great job on the college basketball side, where you are one of my favorite follows for sure. Go ahead and plug. I believe it's going to be tomorrow morning that you do write up your official that will have no screw ups because you won't be working with me on it. But go ahead and plug your website and where everybody can find you and your work and the final bracketology projection for yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's tough to do this live, right? Shows how hard it is, right?
Yeah.
Bracketeer.org is the mothership website that I own and operate. We do mostly college basketball coverage, but throughout this last couple of weeks, a lot of college baseball projections. Every day this week we put one up, so that was a lot of fun. This will be the grand finale tomorrow, so that's bracketeer.org. We appreciate everybody's support. If you are into college basketball at all, we have staff writers and people that travel, cover games, and it's continuing to expand. It's been exciting. I actually do consulting for non-conference schedules in basketball. So if you're into any of that, we're usually one of the first to report on it, both on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @RoccoMiller8 or X. Same with Blue Sky. If you check there, I throw some stuff there every once in a while. And then Field of 68, I'm on, throughout the season doing different shows and whatnot. So appreciate everybody's support. This has been a ton of fun, man. Appreciate you and JP having me on this year.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. I did enjoy this year. And for conversation's sake, Troy is in. I've tried scanning through. I don't know where I royally screwed this up, but Troy in the field. 4 Sunbelt teams on the right side of the bubble, at least for the college baseball experience projection. Field of 64, that could be field of 65. JP, any words? What are your Selection Monday plans here for the people?
Probably gonna have my TV on watching the selection show with Airbnb and flights pulled up on my laptop, trying to see if I can afford to go watch the Bearcats play in a regional again this year. And holding my fingers that we get sent to Lincoln. So those are my no big plans, but more just trying to rally the troops, see if I can get a couple other of my guys to get on board. Last year being in Knoxville, it was a fairly easy travel for us. So we were get a good crew down there.
You
So
did have like a nice little clan over there. I remember that.
great. Yeah, it was awesome just to be able to like, hey, 4.5 hours in the car. Also, it was Reynolds. He's the pitching coach at Tennessee. He was at Cincinnati the year prior.
Yeah.
So he hooked us up with tickets for like the full regional, not just Cincinnati games. So it was a good deal all in all. I don't anticipate my luck being as good this year for sure.
All righty. And the people can find me. We'll be live streaming 11.7 and here on the College Baseball Experience YouTube channel. We'll be interviewing a couple of coaches, players, teams that are in the NCAA tournament, in the big dance, that have punched their ticket. And then soon after, Monday night, expect a College Baseball Experience episode. And I would say Monday afternoon, 11.7 should have an episode out there. So that'll do it for me and for JP. And Rocco, thank you again for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you on and share your insight with us and the followers and listeners out there. This has been the College Baseball Experience. You better start thinking about yours. And we are out of here.